If you are new to the payments industry, no doubt you are hearing a lot of terms that are unfamiliar to you. In this set of online presentations, we will cover some basic concepts related to our industry, starting with payment cards. Throughout its history, the payments industry has undergone many changes, from coins and paper money to checks and traveler's checks. The invention of the payment card was a huge milestone in our industry. Payment card technology has undergone an amazing evolution over the past 50 years. Today, we have many more ways to obtain cash and pay for purchases than we had 50 years ago. Let's take a close look at a payment card. A payment card must conform to very specific physical requirements. These are outlined in the ISO IEC 7810 standards, which specify dimensions, construction and materials, flammability, heat resistance, and similar characteristics. ATMs and terminals that accept your card at retail stores are designed and manufactured to accept payment cards that conform to these specifications. This ensures that your payment card can be used at any payment accepting device in the world. We refer to this concept as global interoperability. You probably have one or more payment cards that you use at an ATM or to purchase goods and services. To get a card, you may need to fill out an application from a bank, a credit union, or other institution. Your application is reviewed, and if everything checks out, you are issued a card. The entity that provides the card to you is called the issuer. Here are some of the items that are commonly found on the front of a payment card. We will cover many of these in upcoming slides. Not all cards will have all of the items listed here. For example, your card may not have a chip. Your card may not support contactless functionality, and some of these items might be found in slightly different places on the front of the card than we show here. You will typically see the issuing institution's name and their company logo on the front of the card. On the back of the card, you will find a magnetized strip of tape, a signature panel, and various other items related to card security. We will cover many of these in upcoming slides. Your issuer will probably print information on the back of the card about what to do if your card is lost or stolen. When you first receive your card, it is a good idea to make note of this information and save it in a safe place. If your card really is lost or stolen, you will not be able to look on the back of the card to obtain this information. You can also find contact information on the issuer's website. Not all cards will contain all of the items shown here. This is just an example. You may see a logo for MasterCard, Visa, American Express, or Discover on a payment card. Issuers enter into agreements with these global payment card brands to ensure that their cards will be accepted around the world. Merchants and retailers also enter into agreements with these global payment card brands to accept those cards as payment for goods and services. Each payment card has a unique card number that is associated with one or more accounts belonging to the cardholder. This unique card number is known as the PAN, or primary account number. You can find the PAN on the front of the card. The PAN is typically between 13 and 19 digits long. The first digit of the PAN indicates the industry, such as banking or finance. The next 3 to 5 digits of the PAN identify the issuer. So, the first 4 to 6 digits is called the BIN, or the Bank Identification Number. It is also known as the IIN, or the Issuer Identification Number. The digits immediately following the BIN indicate the account number. The last digit of the PAN is called the check digit. It is calculated using a Mod 10 algorithm, which is a simple checksum formula that is used to validate the card number. This technique was designed in the 1950s simply to protect against accidental errors such as a transposition error when writing down the card number, and to distinguish a valid card number from a collection of random digits. It was never intended to be used as a fraud prevention measure. The American National Standards Institute is responsible for allocating bins to issuers. The ISO IEC standard 7812 describes the numbering system and registration procedures that are used when assigning a bin to an issuer. The account number and the check digit for each card are assigned by the issuer. You can typically identify the global card brand that is associated with each card by the first one or two digits of the card number. A few examples are shown here. There are many other possibilities. When payment cards were first introduced, the person accepting the card for payment had to write down the PAN and other information from the card on a piece of paper. Obviously, this manual process was very prone to human error. In order to mechanically capture this information, the PAN and some of the other information on the front of the card was placed on the card using raised characters. This technique is known as embossing. A mechanical device was introduced, which was fondly known as the zip-zap machine because of the sound it made when it was being used. They were also called knuckle busters because if you were not careful, you could really hurt your hand when using this machine. The card with embossed numbers was placed in the device along with the carbon paper receipt, and the top of the device was moved back and forth across the paper and the card, capturing the image of the PAN on the paper. The customer, the merchant, and the issuer each received a copy of this paper. Even with this mechanical device, think about how cumbersome this manual process must have been. It also took time for these papers to make their way to all of the necessary parties and for accounts to be debited or credited as needed. There had to be an even faster and better way to do this. In the 1960s, IBM discovered a way to attach a magnetized strip of tape to a plastic card. 3 parallel sets of data, called tracks, were then placed in this magnetic stripe. By the 1980s, standards had been established for payment cards so that all payment devices knew what tracks could be found on a card and exactly where, and the format of those tracks. The ISO IEC 7813 standard was established, which defines the data structure and the content of magnetic stripe track data. Issuers were then able to include the PAN and other data in that magnetic stripe, and terminals were produced that could read the magnetic stripe. Today, the embossing on the card is really only needed when the magnetic stripe cannot be read electronically, either because the magnetic stripe is damaged or the retailer does not have a terminal that is capable of reading the magnetic stripe. The format of the track data really has not changed over the past 30 years or so. As you can see, the magnetic stripe holds a limited amount of data and it is static data. This means that once the data is placed on the magnetic stripe, it does not change during the lifespan of the card. Payment devices typically only use the information from track 2. Once information could be stored in the payment card in electronic form and it could be retrieved electronically by a terminal, this paved the way for transmitting the information electronically. Sending and receiving data electronically is certainly much faster and more accurate and can be more secure than transmitting that same data via paper receipts. The process of sending transaction information electronically from a payment device to an issuer real-time and receiving information electronically from the issuer is known as Online Transaction Processing, or OLTP. We will talk a lot more about this process in upcoming presentations. For obvious reasons, payment cards quickly became very popular. But as with any technology, there were weaknesses that were soon exploited by criminals. Issuers had to take steps to protect themselves and their cardholders. In order to make it more difficult for criminals to produce a counterfeit card, payment cards will often include physical security features such as those listed here. You may see an expiration date on your card. Many cards are replaced or reissued every 2 to 5 years. This is primarily a security feature, although many issuers do periodically update the artwork, design, or their logo on their cards. Your issuer will also replace your card if it has been lost, stolen, or damaged to the point where the data in the magnetic stripe or the chip cannot be read by an ATM or other terminal. Card security codes have been in use for over 10 years. There are several types of card security codes. Each of the global card brands has a different name for these codes, as you can see here. The first type of card security code is embedded in the discretionary data portion of the track 2 in the magnetic stripe. This code is sometimes called the CVC1 or CVV1. The ATM or payment terminal reads the magnetic stripe from the card. The PAN, the security code, and other information in track 2 is electronically transmitted to the issuer, who should then verify the security code to ensure that the card is legitimate. The purpose of this code is to prove that the physical card was present at the payment accepting terminal. Since this code is only found in the magnetic stripe, it is not printed on the card. The exact location of the card security code within the discretionary data may vary depending on the global card brand associated with the card. The second type of card security code is printed on the front or the back of the card. Visa, MasterCard, and Discover print a 3-digit number on the back of the card near the signature panel. American Express places a 4-digit number on the front of the card on the right side above the PAN. In either case, this is the code that is often requested when you are purchasing in a card not present scenario, such as over the internet, where the card is not physically present at the payment terminal. The purpose of this particular code is to ensure that the card is truly in the possession of the person who is making the purchase. Since this code is only printed on the card, it is not found in the magnetic stripe. The third type of card security code is only found on chip cards. This code is actually embedded in the chip. This code is often called the ICSC, ICVC, or ICVV. The lowercase I indicates that the code comes from the chip or integrated circuit card. A chip-enabled payment terminal will obtain this code from the chip and forward it to the issuer. Verifying this code is one way for the issuer to be sure that the actual chip was read and that a legitimate card was used, since this code is not printed on the card, nor is it found in the magnetic stripe. Not only do issuers implement physical security measures to make sure the actual card is genuine, they also want to make sure that the person using the card is a legitimate cardholder. This process is called Cardholder Verification. There are several cardholder verification techniques. A PIN is a very common method of cardholder verification, since it is to be hoped that only the owner of the card knows the PIN for that card. ATMs require the use of a PIN. In some regions around the world, a PIN is also required when making a purchase. In other places, a signature may be accepted. Or, for a purchase with a low cash value, you may not need to enter a PIN or sign a receipt. But even with all of these security measures, counterfeit card fraud is at an all-time high in many countries, including the United States, because it is now very easy to copy the magnetic stripe from a legitimate card and produce a counterfeit card. There are also many ways to fraudulently obtain a PIN. For more information about counterfeit card fraud, please view our presentation titled, "Is EMV the Silver Bullet for Counterfeit Card Fraud?" One way to successfully defend against counterfeit card fraud is to implement EMV. For more information about EMV, please view our online EMV presentations or contact us to schedule on-site in-depth EMV training. In this presentation, we talked about what is on a payment card. Next, we will take a look at what happens behind the scenes when you use that card to get cash at an ATM or to purchase something in a store. We hope this presentation has been helpful. Paragon is a leading provider of e-payment simulation, configuration, and testing software solutions. We offer professional services, including EMV training. We have over 590 customers in more than 85 countries. For more information about our products and services, contact us using one of the links shown here.